growing. Frankl covered this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that the sort of person a prisoner became was the result of an inner decision. Once they changed their self-image, it changed. If you ever have a chance to go to Cartagena, Colombia, one of the most interesting parts of Cartagena is a town about an hour outside of Cartagena called Basilio de Palenque. It was founded by an escaped slave in the 1600s. The slave was a prince in Africa. And his village that he created was burned out by the Spaniards multiple times. They would melt into the jungle, come back and rebuild. And eventually the Spaniards got tired of it, and that village still exists today. And there's a statue in the town plaza of the man who said, yes, we were enslaved, but we were not slaves. And that's what self-image is all about. It's how we see ourselves in such a powerful way. The heart, in our little stick figure here, represents values. Values are the things that are always true. Now, there are many things that change due to technology and the rest of that, but your notions of what you believe to be right, your notions of what you believe to be wrong, should be things that you explore strongly enough and powerfully enough that they become unshakable. Not easy to do that. We live in a very comfortable society. But if you've ever talked to someone that came from a war zone, an active war zone, and their existence from day to day was in question, often their set of values are somewhat different to our own. Although we will hopefully never be in that situation, we can do what Einstein called thought experiments. Put yourself in different situations. How would you respond? For example, how many of you believe that it's good to take care of refugees that are political in crisis? That's a good thing for countries to do. Most people in opinion polls say that's a good thing to do. But if they said, what would you think if a refugee family from Syria moved in next door to you? A lower percentage would approve of that. You see, when we're questioning our values, either it's something we believe or we don't. How many of us believe, for example, it's good to protect our environment? About 100% of people think that. But have you ever walked out of a room and left the lights on, or run the water more than we needed to, failed to use a recycle bin? These are small, simple little examples. But when we really think about these things, what am I willing to really live for? Who's this character? Nelson Mandela. Usually when I talk to students, they say, Morgan Freeman. We did play him in a movie once. And Mandela, we know, spent a great deal of time in Robben Island in that prison cell. He spent 27 years there, to be exact. But what is less well known is that his sentence was a 20-year sentence. At the 20th year, they said, you've served your time, you're free to go. And Mandela said, I refuse to leave. I will not leave this cell until every other political prisoner has been freed. He stayed 7 additional years. And in that act of nonviolent resistance, he broke the back of apartheid and freed a nation. I believe we would call that a strong set of values. So is there something that you believe strongly enough that you're willing to live for? Is there anything you'd be willing to die for? Hopefully we'll never have to answer that second question. But find something that you believe in strongly enough to dedicate yourself to and to live for, because it makes things brilliant. That may or may not be in your career. Your business life may facilitate what you perceive to be your true purpose in life. Someone that I admire a great deal is Bill Gates. We can disagree with lots of philosophies and business decisions. But one of the things that Bill Gates has done very well is to commit to giving away 95% of his wealth to help children all over the world have a chance. And he spends some of his time convincing other rich people to give away 95% of their wealth. His real purpose in life is to change the world. And so when we have the right values, we spend our lives in pursuit of that, even if the vehicle we travel in changes. The heart represents purpose. And without getting all emotional and sentimental, I don't know what purpose in life for you is all about. Who knows? But I can say that life is different if we decide that there's a unique reason we're on the earth. How many other people of the 13 billion that have walked the earth since it was created, how many have your same exact DNA? No one. 13 billion unique individuals. Doesn't it stand to reason that there is a unique role or position or spot for each one of us? When we say there's a purpose behind my life beyond just eating, sleeping, consuming, spending, partying, traveling, we start to think about things differently. We gain a much greater sense of energy. People that start businesses successfully Understand it's not just about energy, it's about commitment. That you just hang on longer than you ever imagined anybody thought made sense. You develop a great deal of what is called grit. Angela Duckworth at the University of Pennsylvania has studied this extensively. And way beyond IQ and way beyond standardized test scores and way beyond socioeconomic background, people that have grit, where they're just saying, I'm not going to quit, are more closely correlated to success in life than any other characteristic. And for most of those people, it's because they had a purpose strong enough to drive that. And finally, I think we receive something much greater than simple amusement. We get that sense of joy, of fulfillment, of making things happen in a really positive and great way. So here's our character. This is all about us. When are we through working on our character? I don't actually think we ever are. So anyway, we've been in your future. Let's wrap up by taking you back to kindergarten. Is that cool? Anybody remember kindergarten? I do. It was the best 4 years of my life. It was fantastic. Well, years ago, a man named Robert Fulghum wrote a book called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Little bitty book, but it became a worldwide bestseller. Millions of copies sold. Fulghum, all of a sudden, is a celebrity. And when you're a celebrity, they want you on talk shows, they want you giving speeches, interviews, the whole 9 yards. And Fulghum was being flown all over the world and wined and dined, and at first he liked it, but his self-image was, no, I'm not a celebrity, I just want to write books. And so he said, no more speeches, no more talk shows. Guess what? The requests kept coming. Speak, speak, speak. So he said, okay, here's the deal. I'm willing to speak to two kinds of audiences. Number one, I will speak to kindergarten children. I owe them a lot. And number two, I'll speak to college students. Now, when I read that, I thought, this guy's brilliant. This means he can get up in the morning, talk to kindergarten kids when they've just gotten out of bed, and then that evening he can talk to the college students when they've just gotten out of bed. So he'll have a really alert audience. So he would start with the kindergartners, and they'd always have them really wired. They'd fill them with Lorna Doones and apple juice. The kids are kind of stoked. And Dr. Fulghum would get in front of these excited kids and say, children, let me ask you a question. How many of you can sing? Now, do any of you know little 5 or 6 year old people? If they're wired and excited and you ask them if they can sing, what's going to happen? They're going to start singing. They're going to sing, let it go, let it go. I mean, they're going to start singing. And then they'll say, when do the Lion King? You're Scar, I'll be Simba. And they'll sing through the whole thing, and you can't stop them, right? And Fulghum would say, that's awesome. Well, how many of you can dance? And the kids are all around the room doing the funky chicken, swinging him, and they're on tables. They're just having the best time. And he'd say, well, how many of you can draw? And the kids say, yeah, I can draw. Look, I can draw. Look, I can draw. And he says, wow, that's awesome. What is it? And they say, well, it's a ball, and it's my house, and it's my lunch, and a boat. And I made it for you. You know, and is that not true? The little kids, right? Well, he'd take a nap, and then that evening, he'd go to a university, and there'd usually be a large crowd of 1,000 or more students. And Dr. Fulghum would say, students, let me ask you a question. How many of you can sing? And there's a few hands and a little muttering like, man, you sing badly when you're drunk. You know, well, shut up, you sing in the shower, bad. But not many hands. And then he'd say, well, how many of you can dance? And you get a couple of dancers raising their hands, and the rest of them, oh, no, I got the earbuds. I do this once in a while, but I don't dance that much. And he'd say, well, how many of you can draw? A couple of artists and architects, but everybody else, oh, no, I'm primarily text-based, you know, don't really. And Fulghum would look at this crowd and say, what has happened to you? When you were 5, you could do anything. Now you're 25, you can't even sing, you can't even dance, and you can't even draw. Well, I think we know what happened, right? Sometime between being really little and being bigger, we learn a brand new skill. The skill is called how to be embarrassed. You ever notice that babies are not born with that skill? Babies don't get embarrassed about anything. Observe a 3-month-old sometime. They do 4 things. They eat, they sleep, they cry, and they poop. And they're proud of all of it. You know, no big deal. You can walk in and go, oh my gosh. They go, oh, you want more? You know, yeah, look at me. But over time, a little of this and a little of that and social normalization, and it's like, whew. Now, personally, I believe that some kinds of embarrassment are very healthy for perpetuation of species. If you think it'd be embarrassing to play ultimate frisbee on I-65 in rush hour wearing no clothes at all, that's a good embarrassment, okay? But here's my final encouragement. Try not to let the fear of disapproval keep you from figuring out who you uniquely are meant to be. Try not to let the fear of failure cause you to fail because you're afraid. I don't know any truly successful people that haven't failed repeatedly, over and over. And what they learn is that failure is never final. Success can also be fleeting. But as you grow through life, appreciate you, and you will have a tremendous life.